Hi, and thank you for joining us on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Belomo. I am an attorney at Belomo and Associates in York and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and our practice focuses exclusively in the areas of estate planning, elder law, which includes anything from wills, powers of attorney, trust planning for asset protection purposes or tax purposes, as well as post-death administration. And we do everything from probate to trust administration within that administration process. Anything to clean up after a death to make sure that the assets go where they are available. So welcome to the podcast. Today, I would like to talk about all things Medicaid. I have noticed lately that there has been a lot of kind of misconceptions and rumors and just people coming into the office, and I'm hearing things. And so I thought, it's probably as good of a time as any to kind of clean this topic up a little bit and to share a little bit of insight into the topic so that people can understand a little better what it is, what it isn't, and that not necessarily all of the rumors or things that you're hearing out in the public are true. So, first of all, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid? We always hear, don't worry, I have a really good health insurance, and the health insurance is going to take care of everything. So first of all, let me just get rid of that myth. When you're dealing with health insurance and it comes to long-term care, the insurance is not going to pay for it. The best thing that we have is that Medicare, if you are in a hospital, you are admitted for 3 consecutive midnights, and you need to go to a long-term care facility to rehabilitate, they will pay up to 100 days. All right, now, if you were listening closely, I'm sure you heard all kinds of, oh man, that's not cool. Wow, I think he's saying that intentionally. Oh boy, right? So admitted for 3 consecutive days. A lot of times you're under observation, and you certainly would think that you were admitted, right? You're in the hospital, you're receiving treatment, you're getting medications. I mean, why would one think that they're not being admitted? And then the other one I said was up to 100 days. So the other fallacy is, I have 100 days, they'll pay for 100 days. Not necessarily, okay? So why the person is there in the rehabilitation facility, they have to be doing rehabilitation. They have to be getting therapy and at a minimum maintaining, at a bare minimum maintaining where they are. But oftentimes what happens is maybe they have dementia, right? Or maybe they just don't feel well. I mean, let's face it, some days you wake up, you don't feel like doing something, and they refuse. Generally I say you get a pass on the first one. On the second one, not so much. And all of a sudden now, the family gets a letter around day 42, usually on a Tuesday, and by the meeting says, by Friday your person's going to be a private pay individual in our nursing home because they're not ready to leave, they're not safe to go home, but yet they refused therapy, they refused, getting better, and therefore they can no longer be on Medicare. Now, that is significant, right? Because for an individual who has Medicare, a lot of people have supplemental policies. And to the extent that you have a supplemental policy, you are receiving that care either at a zero rate or very, very little because the supplemental care will pick up the copays. So now you're dealing with someone who isn't paying anything or who is paying very little and now goes to a complete private pay situation, which is usually about $12,000 to $13,000 in York and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So that's a huge difference. If they did not have a supplemental policy, yeah, they were paying copays, but even the copays are pretty minimal considering what they're about to face at $12,000 to $13,000 private pay a month. So certainly something you want to be aware of, and you do not want to count on Medicare. All right, so when you head over into Medicaid, what I have found in my 20 years of practice is that is like a 4-letter word. When you use that word, people have a very strong opinion, good, bad, indifferent, right? Whatever their opinion is, they tend to have it very strongly. But the problem that I have with it is that it's not always a correct opinion, right? So when I'm in a workshop and I mention that word, people will often raise their hand and say, well, who wants to live in the county home? Well, first of all, let me say this. A couple of years ago, when York County was running the county home, it was the highest rated facility in York County, and people wanted to go there. It was getting the highest ratings. It was running really well. Now, I have heard, since York County sold it, it isn't quite the same facility, but I just raised that to say, just because something is a county home does not mean that it's good, bad, and different. It's who's running it and who are the nurses and who are the doctors. And at the end there, York County really was taking a lot of pride in our county home, getting the best doctors, getting the best nurses. But regardless, that isn't what it means. There's only one county home, right? And there are probably 17 nursing homes in York County. There's only one county home. Yet how many of them accept Medicaid? All of them except Dallastown Nursing and Rehab on Main Street in Dallastown. And that doesn't mean necessarily that that facility is any better or any worse than any others. It just simply means that they made a business decision that they did not want to accept Medicaid, right? They didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to deal with the hassle. And I haven't gotten an update on this, but I was told about a year ago that they also were looking into the process of determining whether accepting Medicaid made sense for them. So I only bring it up because Medicaid is just an opportunity to have payment or to be paid by the nursing home. If there are 17 nursing homes in York County and all of them accept Medicaid except one, there is an opportunity and an option to be able to be placed into all of them if there is a bed available. And honestly, that isn't as big of a deal as it sounds either. Now, I will admit, COVID definitely sort of shook things up a little bit. Facilities weren't taking people. They were having outbreaks. They were having to shut down. So there was a period of time there where it was very, very, very hairy. Currently, it's getting better, and I anticipate that will only get better from here. So suffice it to say that with that many nursing homes, as long as the person is not a combative or has a history of hitting or hurting individuals, generally you can get them placed in and around York County in a very nice facility. In my mind, there really aren't many horrible places, and if you wanted to avoid something in particular, you certainly could and still find a placement as long as there were not other extenuating circumstances, like I said, like they were combative or hitting others or doing something like that. So that's the first thing I just wanted to get out there. The second thing is it's not too late. We always hear, well, so-and-so is already in the nursing home. It's too late. You have to plan 5 years ahead of time. Now, let me clear that up. Yes, certainly we would love you to plan 5 years ahead of time. If you're planning 5 years ahead of time, that means that you're doing pre-planning, right? So if you listen to our podcasts, you know that pre-planning is, in our vernacular, what we would call trust planning. And we would create a trust for the individual. We would have the assets sit in the trust and grow, controlled by the grantor for 5 years. And once 5 years is over, then those assets are protected and not an available resource. So sure, in a perfect world, everybody would pre-plan. Everybody would get that taken care of ahead of time. But we all know that we do not live in a perfect world. So no, that is not true. If an individual is already placed, it is not too late. For a married couple, you can still protect up to 100% of the married couple's assets. And for a single individual, widow or widowed, we can protect up to 50%. All right. Now, that means they had done no prior planning. They're in a nursing home already receiving care. And assuming that it's one of those, all but the one facility in York County who doesn't accept Medicaid, now you have an opportunity to be able to preserve assets, even if they're already placed. All right. Now, gee, Jeff, what do I need to do in order to be able to do that? Well, first things first. We always tell people in our workshops that we're teaching and training, Medicaid is a 3-pronged test. Okay. First, the person receiving the care has to be medically eligible. That means that they need to receive skilled level care. The second thing is they need to be financially eligible. And in order to tie it all together and to get approval, you need to have 5 years of statements in order to be able to suffice or to meet the requirements of the 5-year look-back period. Okay, so those are our 3 prongs that we have to meet. Medically eligible. That's the one that we don't control, right? There's nothing we can do, good, bad, and different, in order to be able to assist in regards to that issue. What I am told over and over again is that, it is determined by a person's activities of daily living, eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, walking, and that the more severe any one of them or several of them are, the more likely a person is to receive skilled care. Now, for most of my career, I always thought it was basically like, if you need 3 of them, you're skilled. If you need 1 or 2, your personal care or assisted living. But was definitely given great advice at a boot camp that we were teaching, a professional boot camp, by an individual who actually worked for the county and who did the assessments, who said, actually that isn't true. If you have 1 of those and you need it really badly, the person can still determine that you are skilled level care eligible. So, I always tell people, I'm going to leave it to the professionals at the Area Agency on Aging to make the final determination. Obviously, that isn't me, certainly, but that's the first step. The person needs to be medically eligible. Where we come in is assisting you in getting 5 years of statements of every bank account, every asset, everything that they have, in order to be able to put it together in a box. So what is this look-back period, right? We hear this look-back period, 60 months, all the time, and if a person gives money away, they have to wait 60 months. That isn't true. What a look-back period is on the day that we're going to file a Medicaid application, we have to go back 60 months. So what I tell my team, or when I'm in a training session, is put a box on the table. What goes in that box? Every statement of every account that this person or family has had, if it's a husband and wife, for the past 5 years. Okay, checking, savings, money markets, retirement accounts, insurance products, right? If you can think of it, essentially, we want to know what happened to those assets in the past 5 years. And what are we looking for? We're looking for gifts. We're looking for the family giving a ton of money away, trying to qualify for Medicaid, right? That's essentially what we're looking for. But if we find that gifts were given, that creates a penalty, okay? So in Pennsylvania currently, the rate for the penalty is $482.50 daily. All right, so what that means essentially is we have a $10,000 gift. We divide it out by $482.50. That tells us how many days we're going to be penalized. We have a $100,000 gift. We're going to divide it out by 14,676.04. That'll tell us how many months we're going to be penalized, right? Penalized just means Medicaid is not going to pick up our bill during that period. Why? Because you gave away money previously. But notice, you didn't wait 60 months, okay? And that's important because when we get into the technique of how we protect assets, we're essentially giving assets away. So we can't have to wait 60 months or the planning wouldn't work, right? So it's important that I clear that piece up for everybody, that there's no such thing as a 60-month penalty. It is a 60-month look-back period. And we're just looking in the box to see what has occurred, to see if you've given gifts away. Well, while we're on it, let's talk about gifts, okay? We're here. We might as well address it. What is a gift? Well, a gift is you giving away money and not receiving fair market value or full compensation in return. Jeff, I painted a painter to paint my house. He charged me $10,000. Is that a gift? Well, honestly, I don't know. Because the question that you have to answer is, what is fair market value to paint the house? So assuming that, $10,000 is a reasonable and fair compensation to paint the house, then we are good to go. But if the answer is, well, actually, the fair market value to paint that house is probably $5,000 and he paid $10,000, now we have a $5,000 for value transfer and a $5,000 gift, which means that $5,000 is going to get divided out by that $482.50, and we're going to see how many days the person will be penalized. Well, how do you determine what's fair market value? Well, what's the going rate for the services in the area? I mean, it's that simple, right? So if we can prove to the county assistant's office that we went out into the market, we got 5 quotes, and we took the most reasonable quote or the cheapest quote, or was right in the ballpark, we're not going to have an issue, right? Because that's fair market value. You're right in the wheelhouse. If it turns out that you paid your grandson, and you paid your grandson because he's an aspiring painter and you want to help him out, again, what's fair market value to paint the house? So if you paid your grandson $20,000 and that fair market value was still $5,000, that's a $15,000 gift. One of the biggest fallacies that we hear all the time in our practice is, I'm allowed to give away $16,000 a year. That is called an annual exclusion gift, and that's a tax concept, okay? So yes, in tax land, you are allowed to give away $16,000 a year to anyone for any reason. But if you end up in a nursing home within that 5-year look-back period, and if in a single month you gave away more than $500, they are going to penalize you. That is a tax concept. That is why I created the 3 lands to your family security. We teach in our workshops tax land, long-term care land, and estate planning land. And we walk through the lands and show you how when you're making a decision, it might have a great consequence for long-term care, but it might have a horrible tax consequence, or vice versa. You might have this great or horrible tax consequence with a horrendous long-term care concept. And when you're dealing with estate planning, always remember you want to remain in control. Well, in order to get or to take advantage of a tax gift or annual exclusion gift, you have to give it away indefinitely. Remember, a gift is non-take-a-backable. One more time for just fun. A gift is non-take-a-backable. You give it away, you cannot require it to come back. There can be no strings attached. So I raise this because gifting can be our Achilles heel. Why? Because people go and get advice on the internet, from general practitioners, from professionals who don't specialize in Medicaid or asset protection or elder law. And the problem is they're actually being told to do it, right? It's actually a plan. I have seen hundreds of letters from attorneys telling people to do it, but they're not warning them within that letter, oh, by the way, if you end up in a nursing home situation needing long-term care, there's a 5-year look-back period. And within that look-back period, they're going to see the gifts that you're giving. So that's the part that I think we need more education on. We need to tell people there's a consequence to doing this, which is why we're giving so many free workshops away to try to educate the community so that they don't fall prey to making a big mistake without even realizing it, okay? So now what we have to do is we say, okay, we know that the person has the 5 years. We got to get them financially qualified. So I've touched on this a little bit. I think that when you're getting into the details of it, the simplest way to explain it is that for an individual to qualify, they need to have under $8,000 or under $2,400 in assets. Okay? Now, they look at the income of the individual to see, is their income greater than or less than $2,523? If it's greater than that, then they're only going to be allowed to keep $2,400 in assets. And if it's less than that, they're going to be allowed to keep $8,000 in assets. Yes, you can exempt a home, but the problem is if you exempt a home with the intent to return home, when you die, it's still in your name alone. the state of Pennsylvania will have a right to a state recovery. So when we do a plan, we're looking to protect as much as we can and do it in a way that there will not be any sort of recovery at all. Okay, so for a single individual, we would probably sell the house, take the money, and as I alluded to earlier, we can protect 50% of the assets. So we go ahead, we make a gift to a family member, we get penalized for that gift, right? You can't give a gift away in the 5-year look-back period. Shame on you, right? And you get that slap on your hand. Simultaneously, you take the other half of the money that you have in the other hand, and you say, no problem, I have this other half of the money to pay for that penalty, and I'm going to take this asset and I'm going to turn it into an income stream under the rules of the federal Medicaid law, which is completely allowed to make sure that the nursing home gets paid their private pay rate during the penalty period. And that, with possibly a very shortfall that will be taken care of through the people who receive the gift, the family member, they'll take care of that shortfall to the nursing home, and voila, the nursing home is paid the full private pay rate, and when the penalty ends, the person is on Medicaid, right? When we're dealing with a married couple, the rules are very different. The individual themselves, yes, they still need to be under those thresholds. But what are we going to allow the community spouse to keep, right? So what it says is that the community spouse can keep a house, a car, the community spouse retirement account, put everything else in a pot. What's his, what's hers, what's in the institutionalized spouse's retirement account, everything goes into a pot. And the community spouse can keep half of that pot, okay? But no more than $137,400 and no less than $27,480. All right, so it's important to remember that. But the question begs itself. Okay, so what happens if it's half, but half of the pot is $500, and they're only allowed to keep $137,400, right? $137,400. Well, anything above the $137,400, we're able to take, turn into an income stream, and give it back to the community spouse. And we want to do it as quickly as possible. Why? Because we have to name the state of Pennsylvania as a beneficiary in order for it to be qualified, in order for it not count against us. So that means if the community spouse dies or ends up in a nursing home, that money can be then taken to the state. But if we can get it back to the community spouse as soon as possible, which we can, then we're able to get it back to the community spouse and they're able to keep it. So I'm just trying to introduce you to the concept today. Today's the first day that we've really delved into Medicaid. We talked about the 5-year look-back period, the penalty period, the different types of nursing homes, and the ones that accept Medicaid and the ones that don't. And then also, of course, we touched there at the end around protecting half of the assets. Now, notice I didn't get into the complete how or the why, right? That is obviously because you need to seek counsel. Remember, folks, don't take advice from this show or any other radio show for that matter when it comes to getting legal advice. Go to a certified elder law attorney in your area who specializes in this area, who does it every single day. Make sure that you're getting good advice so that you're not getting hurt and your family's not getting hurt, right? So don't listen to this. This doesn't create an attorney-client relationship. If you happen to be in Pennsylvania and you're looking for advice because a loved one entered a nursing home, man, we would love to help. Please give us a call at 717-845-5390 or check us out on the web at www.belomoassociates.com. We'd certainly love to help and to learn your specific fact pattern. And that is actually why we give a free consultation for families. Once they watch a 2-hour workshop, you get a free consult with a team member. We tell you what can be done. We tell you the cost of how we're going to do it and what can be done so that you know what you're paying for and what the result's going to be, okay? And then after that meeting, We have none of your money. You get to make a decision as to whether it makes sense to work with our firm, and we would certainly love to work with you and to help your family get you qualified or get a family member qualified and preserve the assets that we are able to under the law. So that is certainly what our ultimate goal is. Stay within the law and protect as much as possible. And under the current rules, it's very favorable in the state of Pennsylvania. So as I always say to my clients, we look to be pigs, but not hogs, right? Pigs get nurtured, hogs get slaughtered. We have a great Medicaid rule and law already in place that's allowing us to do all kinds of asset protection planning. Let's stay within the rules. Let's stay within our lane. Protect what we can, but don't be greedy, all right? Thank you for joining me today on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by Jeffrey Palomo. I look forward to the next podcast, and I hope to see you on the Red Wagon Estate Planning Elder Law Show. We hope you enjoyed your time today. We'll see you.